Charles Anderson was the kind of man people respected before he even spoke. With his sharp suits, calm voice, and commanding presence, he built a business empire from the ground up. Yet behind that towering reputation, there was a softness, one shaped by the love of his late wife, Evelyn. Evelyn had been the soul of their family, a black woman who carried herself with quiet dignity. She knew what it meant to be stared at in stores, whispered about in restaurants, or ignored in boardrooms. She had scars no one saw, wounds carved not by knives but by words. Still, she raised her daughter, Lily, to be strong, proud, and unashamed of where she came from. But after Evelyn's passing, something shifted. At first, it was subtle. Lily stopped visiting her mother's side of the family. She made excuses. Too much homework, too many activities, too busy. Then she stopped mentioning them altogether. Soon, Charles realized she didn't even want to hear Evelyn's name. Charles tried to rationalize it. She's grieving, he told himself. She just doesn't know how to process it. But the excuses dried up when he overheard her one night, laughing into her phone with friends. Yeah, my mom's family is, different. I don't hang around them much. They don't really belong in the circles I'm in now. Charles had felt many kinds of pain in his life. Loss, betrayal, failure. But hearing his daughter dismiss her own blood, Evelyn's blood, was unlike anything else. It was like watching Evelyn die, all over again. That night, while staring at Evelyn's picture on the mantel, Charles made a decision. He had spent his life protecting Lily with money and privilege. Now he would strip all of that away and see who she truly was when she thought no one important was watching. The next morning, Charles prepared for a role he never thought he'd play. No custom-tailored suit, no polished shoes, no expensive watch. Instead, he wore scuffed boots, faded jeans, and a jacket that had seen better days. He pulled a baseball cap low over his graying hair, leaving just enough shadow to cover his sharp features. He looked into the mirror. The powerful Charles Anderson was gone. In his place sat a tired, ordinary cab driver, a man invisible to the world. He rented an old yellow taxi, its paint chipped, its leather seats cracked from years of wear. The steering wheel felt rough beneath his hands, the smell of gasoline clinging to the air. It was a far cry from the luxury cars in his garage, but that was the point. He wanted Lily to see him, not as her father, but as someone she believed didn't matter. As he pulled up outside Lily's college campus, his heart began to pound. Students poured out of lecture halls, laughing, joking, shoving each other playfully. They looked carefree, unbothered. And then there she was, Lily. She was striking, dressed in designer clothes that screamed wealth. Blonde highlights caught the sun. Her manicured nails glistened as she scrolled on her phone, and her expensive bag dangled casually from her shoulder. She waved at the cab without looking up, slid into the back seat, and sighed like the world was already wasting her time. "Union Square," she said flatly, still glued to her phone. Charles swallowed hard. His daughter sat just a few feet away, yet she felt miles apart. The city buzzed around them as Charles drove through the streets, but Lily hardly noticed. Her phone lit up with a call, and she answered with a cheerful laugh that Charles hadn't heard in months. "Hey, girl, you ready for tonight? Oh my God, it's going to be amazing." Her friend chattered loudly enough for Charles to catch snippets. Then Lily's tone shifted, sharper, more smug. "I told my dad not to invite Mom's family anymore. They don't fit in. I mean, let's be real. They're nice and all, but it's embarrassing. People ask questions. It just doesn't look good. Charles felt his chest tighten. He tightened his grip on the steering wheel so hard his knuckles turned white. Every word she spoke felt like a slap across his face, across Evelyn's memory. Her laughter filled the cab, careless and cruel. Honestly, I don't even claim that side anymore. That's not me. That's not who I am. Charles blinked back tears. Evelyn had fought her whole life to be seen, to belong, to prove that her blackness was not a stain, but a crown. And now, her own daughter, the one she had carried, nurtured, and loved, was throwing it all away like it was trash. When Lily hung up, she finally looked up at the road, impatient. "Can you drive faster? I don't want to be late. You know how people stare when you show up in cheap rides like this." She said it without thinking, but the words pierced Charles's heart. She sounded just like the people who once mocked Evelyn for being with him, the people who whispered in country clubs and business meetings, questioning why Charles had married a black woman. The ride ended. Lily tossed a few crumpled bills onto the seat and got out without a word of thanks. She walked away, heels clicking confidently against the pavement, her designer bag swinging at her side as if the world belonged to her. Charles sat frozen, staring at the money like it was poisoned. His chest rose and fell with ragged breaths, his hands trembling on the steering wheel. His disguise had worked. Lily didn't recognize him. She hadn't looked at him once, hadn't spared him a smile, hadn't given him a shred of kindness. Instead, he saw her true heart, cold, ashamed, poisoned by the very racism Evelyn had spent her life fighting against. Tears welled in his eyes and spilled down his cheeks. For the first time in decades, Charles Anderson, the man who commanded boardrooms and silenced competitors, felt powerless. He wasn't just losing his daughter, he was losing Evelyn's legacy. But as the tears dried, something else replaced the pain. Resolve. This wasn't the end. Lily might have forgotten where she came from, but Charles would remind her. He wouldn't do it with money or lectures. He would do it with truth. And when the truth finally came crashing down, it would shake Lily's world to its very core. The next evening, Charles pulled his beat-up taxi to the curb outside Lily's sorority house. Girls in silk dresses and heels were spilling out, laughing, their perfumes mixing with the smell of city air. Among them came Lily, dazzling as ever, wrapped in a sparkling gown that looked like it had come straight from the runway. She glanced at the cab and wrinkled her nose, muttering under her breath before sliding inside. "Same guy? Ugh. Guess I got stuck with you again." Charles kept his eyes forward, his voice low. "Where to, miss?" "Downtown club." "And hurry. The last thing I need is showing up in this junk. My friends already laugh when I don't roll in with something decent." Her words stung, but what followed cut deeper. Lily's phone rang again. This time it was a video call, and she answered with a bright smile. "Hey! Yeah, I'm on my way." "No, not in Dad's car." "Some cab." She laughed and glanced at Charles's rearview mirror with a sneer. "You should see this driver." Definitely not the kind of ride we should be taking. But whatever. Dad's busy, and at least I'm not in one of Mom's family cars. Can you imagine? Lord, I'd die of embarrassment. The call ended, but Charles's heart didn't stop aching. His daughter wasn't just ashamed of Evelyn's family. She was ashamed of Evelyn herself. Traffic slowed near an intersection. As Charles waited for the light, a woman crossed the street. an older black woman carrying groceries in torn bags. Charles recognized her instantly. Aunt May, Evelyn's sister. Aunt May struggled with her bags, but her face lit up with kindness, even in hardship. Charles instinctively reached for the door handle to step out and help. But before he could, Lily leaned forward, her voice sharp. Ugh, can you believe that? People like that shouldn't even be in this neighborhood. Always dragging the place down. No wonder I don't go near Mom's family. It's embarrassing. Charles froze. His hand trembled on the wheel. Every syllable stabbed him, because the people like that Lily had just dismissed were her own blood. Evelyn's sister. Her own aunt. The light turned green. Charles pressed the gas, his jaw tight, his vision blurring with unshed tears. When they arrived at the club, Lily handed Charles the fare, with the same careless flick of her wrist. No thank you, no acknowledgement, just money tossed, like he was beneath her. As she strutted away into the glow of neon lights, Charles finally broke. He leaned his forehead against the steering wheel, shoulders shaking as silent sobs ripped through him. He remembered Evelyn's voice, gentle but firm. Charles, no matter how the world treats me, promise me one thing. Don't let Lily grow ashamed of who she is. She has my blood in her veins. Teach her to be proud of it. And now, staring at the daughter who treated Evelyn's memory like dirt, Charles realized he had failed. But maybe it wasn't too late. Back at his mansion, Charles sat alone in the study. Papers were spread across the desk. Shares, deeds, trusts. The empire he had built with his bare hands. It was enough to secure Lily's future 100 times over. But now he questioned everything. Did she deserve it? Would giving her all this wealth only fuel her arrogance and deepen her shame for her mother's legacy? Number. He couldn't let Evelyn's memory be dishonored like that. Instead, he decided to rewrite the rules. If Lily wanted her inheritance, she would have to face the truth. She would have to see the people she mocked. She would have to learn what love, respect, and humility meant. Charles leaned back in his chair, determination hardening in his chest. If she won't remember Evelyn on her own, he whispered, then I'll remind her, even if it breaks her first. The next morning, Charles made arrangements. He instructed his staff to cancel Lily's car service. He spoke to friends in the city who owned the club Lily frequented, arranging for her to be denied entry unless she arrived appropriately. And most importantly, he planned one final taxi ride. One where Lily would not only see her driver again, but also come face to face with the part of herself she was trying so hard to bury. It was a Friday night, the city buzzing with neon lights and weekend laughter. Charles parked his old cab outside Lily's favorite hangout, waiting. He knew she would call him. He had already canceled her car service without her knowing. Right on time, Lily stumbled out of her sorority house in a glittering red dress. She was furious, phone pressed to her ear, snapping at the service line. What do you mean, no drivers available? Ugh, whatever. Just send the old guy again. Minutes later, she yanked open the cab door and slid in, arms folded. Let's just get this over with. Charles kept his eyes on the road, his voice low. Where to? Downtown again. And don't be slow this time. The ride was silent at first, the tension so thick it could choke. Then, just as they neared the bridge, Charles pulled over and cut the engine. Hey, what are you doing? I said the club, not some creepy detour. Slowly, Charles turned in his seat. For the first time, he let his daughter really look at him. He removed the cap, the fake glasses, the rough jacket. His voice shifted back into the commanding, deep tone Lily had known all her life. Her jaw dropped. "Dad! What are you doing in that outfit?" Charles's eyes glistened. "I've been driving you these past nights, Lily. I heard every word, every insult, every shameful thing you said about your mother, about her family, about yourself." Lily's face went pale. No, I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did," Charles cut in, his voice breaking. "You laughed at Evelyn's memory. You mocked her sister on the street. Do you even understand what that woman sacrificed so you could live in comfort? Evelyn scrubbed floors and faced insults every single day, just so you could stand where you are. And now you treat her like she's dirt under your shoes." Tears burned down his cheeks. "You are Evelyn's daughter. Her blood is in your veins, yet you spit on it." For the first time, Lily's arrogance cracked. Her hands shook, her eyes darted everywhere but at her father's face. I didn't think it mattered. People laugh, Dad. They make comments. I just didn't want to be the butt of the joke." Charles's voice thundered in the small cab. "So you became the joke instead. Do you know what Evelyn told me before she died? She made me promise that you would grow up proud of who you are, that you would never let the world shame you for her skin, her blood, her love, and I thought I had kept that promise." His head fell. "But I failed. I failed her. And I failed you." Lily's tears finally spilled. She buried her face in her hands, sobbing. Back at the mansion, Charles sat her down in the study. The desk was covered in papers, trust funds, property deeds, bank accounts. "All of this," he said, gesturing to the empire he built, "was meant to be yours. Every dollar, every stone, every key." Lily's eyes widened, her breath shaky. "But," Charles slammed his palm on the desk, "but you don't deserve it. Not until you prove that Evelyn's blood runs proudly in your veins. You will work. You will spend time with her family. You will understand what it means to live without privilege. Only then will I consider giving this to you." He leaned forward, eyes burning. "If you can't do that, Lily, then everything goes to charity in Evelyn's name." The room went silent, the weight of his ultimatum hanging heavy in the air. That night, Lily cried harder than she ever had. For the first time, her designer clothes felt cheap, her mansion-sized bedroom felt empty, and her reflection in the mirror looked like a stranger. She remembered Evelyn's smile, the warmth of her hands when she tucked Lily in at night, the lullabies she used to hum. Memories she had buried under shame began clawing their way back. For once Lily didn't feel powerful. She felt small and broken. But maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of her change. The next weekend, Charles drove Lily, not to the club, not to the mall, but to a quiet neighborhood on the south side of town. Rows of modest houses lined the street. Children played on cracked sidewalks, and the smell of fried chicken and collard greens drifted from kitchen windows. This was Evelyn's neighborhood, her family's roots. Lily sat stiffly in the passenger seat, her designer bag clutched to her chest like a shield. For the first time, she wasn't rolling up in a luxury car with tinted windows. She was exposed, nervous, unsure. Charles parked in front of a small brick house with peeling paint. On the porch sat Aunt May, the same woman Lily had mocked just days earlier. Aunt May's eyes widened when she saw them, and for a moment, Lily wanted to shrink into the seat. But Charles placed a firm hand on her shoulder. "Get out," he said softly. "This is where your real test begins." Lily walked slowly toward the porch, her heels clicking against the cracked pavement. Aunt May stood, her face lined with years of struggle, but her eyes warm with love Evelyn had once shared. "Child," Aunt May whispered, her voice trembling, "you look just like your mama." The words pierced Lily's heart. For so long, she had run from that comparison, pretending Evelyn's blood didn't run in her veins. But now, for the first time, she didn't feel ashamed. She felt honored. Her throat tightened. Tears blurred her vision. "I'm sorry," she choked out. "I've been so wrong. I turned my back on Mom's family. On you. I thought hiding from who I am would make me stronger. But it only made me weaker." Aunt May's eyes softened. She pulled Lily into her arms, holding her the way Evelyn once had. And for the first time in years, Lily felt safe. The weeks that followed were hard. Charles made sure of it. Lily spent her weekends helping Aunt May cook, clean, and care for her neighbors. She carried groceries for elderly women, painted peeling fences, and served food at the church kitchen, where Evelyn once volunteered. It wasn't glamorous. There were no flashing lights, no champagne, no adoring crowds. But slowly, the shallow laughter of Lily's old life was replaced by something new. Real smiles, heartfelt thank yous, and the kind of warmth money could never buy. One afternoon, while serving soup at the kitchen, a little black girl tugged at Lily's sleeve. "Miss, you look like Miss Evelyn," the girl said shyly. "She used to braid my hair." Lily froze. For the first time, being compared to her mother didn't sting. It swelled her heart with pride. Months passed. One evening, Charles invited Aunt May and the rest of Evelyn's family to the mansion. The long dining table that had once felt cold and empty now overflowed with food, laughter, and stories. Lily sat at the center, her eyes shining, no longer the arrogant girl who sneered at her roots. She listened intently as Aunt May told stories about Evelyn's childhood, her resilience, her sacrifices. At one point, Lily stood and raised her glass. Her voice trembled, but her words were clear. "To my mom, Evelyn Anderson. For too long, I forgot who I was. But now I know. I carry her in me, her strength, her love, her legacy, and I promise, from this day forward, I'll never be ashamed again." The room fell silent, then erupted in applause and tears. Charles's eyes glistened with pride. He knew Evelyn was smiling down at them. Later that night, Charles called Lily into his study. On the desk once again sat the papers, the deeds, the empire. "This was always meant to be yours," he said, his voice steady. "But wealth means nothing without honor. And tonight, you showed me you found it." Lily's hands shook as she touched the documents. But unlike before, she didn't feel entitled. She felt responsibility. "I don't want it all for myself," she whispered. "I want part of it to go to Mom's family, to her community, to the people she loved." Charles's heart swelled with pride. For the first time since Evelyn's passing, he felt peace. A year later, a new community center opened on the south side of town. Its name, etched in bold letters across the entrance, read, "The Evelyn Anderson Foundation for Hope." Children laughed as they played on the brand new playground. Families gathered in the hall for meals, lessons, and celebrations. And at the heart of it all stood Lily, no longer the girl ashamed of her bloodline, but a woman who wore her heritage like a crown. Charles stood beside her, his arm around her shoulder, tears in his eyes. "You kept my promise to Evelyn," he whispered. Lily smiled softly, her gaze fixed on the children playing. "No, Dad, we kept it together." And as the sun set behind the center, casting golden light across the neighborhood, it was clear Evelyn's legacy hadn't just survived. It had been reborn,